my friends, and as of today, the front is awaiting a breakthrough. Occupiers plan to capture Avdiivka and Kupiansk, while the Ukrainian Armed Forces aim to break through to Crimea. But what will come of this the fastest? We'll study now. And let's start with the Kherson direction. Yesterday, Natalia Gumenyuk stated that work is underway there. That's why on the map we see a blue marker of the Ukrainian Armed Forces offensive actions. But so far, there are no new advances and the front line remains unchanged. Some analysts claim that this move by the Ukrainian Armed Forces is not aimed at advancing towards Crimea at all, but rather to push the front line further away from Kherson, thereby reducing the number of shelling incidents. However, I don't see any logic in this at all. Firstly, if the Ukrainian Armed Forces create a serious foothold to prevent shelling in Kherson, which is about 10 kilometers away, there must be a buffer zone. And then, what will stop them from deploying a large amount of equipment and units to this foothold and starting a massive advance on Crimea? Especially in this direction, there are not many fortifications. Moreover, in the case of creating a foothold, it doesn't make any difference for the occupiers whether to shell Kherson or other settlements. Ceasefire won't happen as long as the occupiers are on our land. So, for now, all experts express their speculations, but no one knows the plans of the general staff yet. However, with a high probability, risking so much and landing on the left bank while creating a foothold just to push the enemy's artillery is impractical. You can write your version in the comments. It will be interesting to read. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the situation has somewhat stabilized over the past 2 days. The occupiers have ceased reinforcing attacks from the flanks and today only shelling is ongoing. However, it must be acknowledged that there is quite a lot of shelling. Strikes are occurring across the entire front line. Meanwhile, the Russians continue shelling Nikopol and Marganets almost every day. In the Vuhledar direction, as before, there is a significant amount of shelling across the entire front line. Attacks are only continuing in the Staromayorsky area. All attempts to break through to Zolotaneva and Prechestivka have been unsuccessful. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are holding their defense and preventing the Russians from advancing even a meter, despite the fact that the Russians have a threefold advantage in both manpower and equipment. In the Avdiivka direction, it's hell. The third wave of attacks is now in full force. The occupiers are using everything they can and advancing in the maximum possible number of directions. The situation is most challenging on the southern flank, where the occupiers are trying to expand as much as possible to eventually reach Horlivka. They cannot advance immediately by 4.5 kilometers without a strong rear, so they are attempting to push the entire front line in this direction. On the northern flank, battles are also ongoing in the Svatove area. The occupiers managed to cross the railway a while ago and are achieving tactical success. Unfortunately, tactical successes exist in this area. This distance to Horlivka is even greater, almost 5 kilometers. Therefore, attempts to move closer to the village continue to cut off the main road leading to Avdiivka. Yesterday evening, the occupiers began claiming that they launched powerful assaults on the northern flank, and supposedly Svatove has entered the gray zone. The Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this information yet as the battles continue. In the Bakhmut direction, the occupiers are advancing closer to the Bogdanivka and Ivanivska. Their situation is complicated, acknowledging their significant numbers. Attacks are occurring almost without stopping. Despite this, the Ukrainian Armed Forces managed to break their advancing enemy formations. So far, there are no major changes along the front line. Battles also persist in the Klishchiivka and Avdiivka areas, with a significant increase in the number of shelling incidents. I'd like to focus a bit on the Horlivka direction. Yes, friends, this is a very interesting area where, in the event of a breakthrough by 4.5 kilometers, the Ukrainian Armed Forces could immediately approach the outskirts of Horlivka. Unfortunately, there is no information about offensive actions by the Ukrainian Armed Forces in this direction yet. Perhaps the general staff is keeping it well concealed. For now, I cannot provide any information. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are also commenting on this situation.
There is panic among Russian war correspondents. They write that they are losing positions near Horlivka. We're not saying anything for now. Let their war correspondents panic.
In general, we'll have to wait for information or map updates. At the same time of creating this video, there are no reports of combat actions here. In the Kupiansk and Siversk directions, the occupiers continue fighting in the forest, but over the day the front line remains unchanged and they have no success. At the same time, shelling continues along the entire front line. In the Svatove area, the occupiers continue their offensive actions towards the village of Nadia. It seems that we no longer discuss any Russian strategic advancement. They simply attempt to break through somewhere, and if successful, they deploy reserves to exploit their success. Meanwhile, in the Kupiansk direction, their overarching goal of capturing Kupiansk appears unattainable for the Russians, which is very reassuring. Despite a threefold advantage in manpower and equipment, their offensive actions don't lead to success. Instead, they suffer significant losses, almost 1,000 daily. Battles for Sinkivka and Petropavlivka continue. Shelling persists, and the front line remains unchanged over the day. Also, friends, I'd like to raise the question of losses in the Ukrainian army. Why is no one talking about it? And here, the Book of Memory has released information about the fallen Ukrainian soldiers.
Activists of the Book of Remembrance of the Fallen for Ukraine community claim that they have processed almost all data from open sources about the dead Ukrainian soldiers since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation. According to these estimates, at least 30,000 Ukrainian defenders were killed in the war, as of November 2023, including non-combat losses, but not counting the dead among the missing.
While the Russians have already lost over 300,000 people. Do you believe this information or not? Write in the comments.
Meanwhile, details of the Chinese president's visit to the USA are emerging.
That you and I understand each other clearly, leader to leader, with no misconceptions or miscommunication. We have to ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And we also have to manage it responsibly, that competition. That's what the United States wants and what we intend to do. We also...
Back on each other is not an option. It is unrealistic for one side to remodel the other, and conflict and confrontation has unbearable consequences for both sides. I'm still of the view that major country competition is not the prevailing trend of current times and cannot solve the problems facing China and the United States or the world at large. Planet Earth is big enough for the two countries to succeed, and one country's success is an opportunity for the other. It is an objective.
And that's all from me. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.